Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Revenue Growth Agency webinar, and also welcome to those listening on the podcast. We've got another quick, full of fun, full of information podcast webinar session this morning. The title's Marrying CRO with Storytelling to Boost E-Commerce Performance. And we are joined today by Gareth, who I've known for some time. Gareth has had many experiences in business life over the years, and now he runs a brand called Flockr, which is a social proofing tool which improves conversion rate for e-com brands. So we'll get into that in a minute. Gareth, quick intro to yourself for the listeners. Tell us a little bit about your potted history in a 60-second whiz through.
Hi everybody, so I'm Gareth James, CEO and founder of Flockr. I do apologise about the background noise. I'm actually on the road today, so I've nipped into the coffee shop to do this call. Very quick history for you. I was one of the founders at Money Supermarket, employee number 12 on that business. For 10 years with them, all on client side, running their IT, building the platforms. We IPO'd that back in 2007 for 1.3 billion. I then went over to THG, the Hook Group, for 3 or 4 years on the board there as CIO, building their Ingenuity platform and doing a bunch of acquisitions. Now Protein, look fantastic, all those good things being onto the platform. I then set up a company called Intillery, which is a CRM tech business, doing e-commerce, travel, financial services. Sold that 2.5 years ago. I retired in the last 3 weeks and got bored. I set up a number of interesting investments. I set up Flockr, which we'll talk about a little bit more at the moment, and I've got other interests as well, which perhaps I'll come back and talk about those one day.
Brilliant. So basically, what you don't know about the e-com space and how things work and tech is essentially not worth knowing, basically.
Well, there might be a few things I don't know, but I like to think I do know a few bits and bobs.
Good. So the purpose of the day, we're going to cover off conversion rate. Conversion rate is an interesting and wide and deep topic. And the listeners of this webinar will know that what I talk a lot about is storytelling. And the reason why I talk about that is because there's a direct link between storytelling and acquiring new customers. So getting in front of people that don't know a brand and sort of stopping them in their tracks with a really cleverly put together brand story is a really good way of growing beyond the ceilings that particularly luxury brands, but any e-commerce brand sort of faces the usual sort of 2, 5, 10, 20 million sort of turnover where brands sort of stagnate a little bit. Now, what I talk largely about is how to acquire the new customers, as we've just discussed, but there's a whole world really, and this is where Flockr comes in, but there's a whole world of conversion rate optimization, which focuses on obviously getting the most out of websites. And I feel in my 20 odd years experience, I feel like it's kind of, although it's been around for a long time, it's kind of a place that seems to have been forgotten about a little bit, and there's not lots of new tech. So when you approached me about Flockr, and we had an initial conversation about how you're using the social proof side of the conversion rate sort of landscape, how the social proof side works, it was quite interesting. It felt quite unique. Do you want to just give us a very quick whiz through? We'll get into a bit of detail out of it, but just tell us a bit about Flockr and how it works and how the social proof side works.
Sure. So Flockr is a tag that sits on the website of the e-commerce store, and it listens to all the actions and behaviours that the customer or visitors do. It collects data anonymously. There's no PII data or any personal information. And it's capturing everything from what people are clicking on, what searches they're doing, what they're adding to baskets, what purchases they're making or not making, what they're sharing, what they're liking, how many times they're doing different actions. And one of the things to note is most e-commerce companies, when they're merchandising their store, by clicking which products to feature or which lists, which order to put products on lists, they're generally doing that with purchase data. So what products are the newest or selling the most. So the problem with that is that everybody then gets the same experience. It's not personalized. So utilizing the 99% of data that isn't being used, i.e. not just the purchase data, all the browsing, the clicks, the new products, the add to baskets, you've come up with an amazing data set that can be used to personalize the experience and help customers in a non-intrusive way. We're not talking about pop-ups that say Gareth from Chester has just bought a coat. Nobody finds those useful. It's got to be on brand and helpful and adding to the experience to help people convert.
And what do you think most of the time people fall over in terms of conversion rate as whether it's a luxury brand or e-com store generally? Where do your social proofs or these nudges that are in the tool tend to have most of their impact? Is it the sort of end of the buying process at the sort of basket level and sort of nudging people to purchase into the credit card details, or is it way before that?
What we find is we do a lot of testing on this. And when we start with a new client, often they will say, well, let's just try one placement. Let's just put it on the product details page and try see how that works. But what we find is a more holistic solution by having subtle but on-brand, really nicely crafted messages with the right icons and colours and placements all through the journey is the best approach. It becomes an integral part of the experience. So it's not surprising when the customer sees it and they visually recognize the message that it's conveying from a distance, and it becomes part of their experience. So having that across the entire journey done in the right way is the best way to do that.
Yeah. And in terms of the actual implementation, so I've obviously seen it. We're working together on a number of clients, but I've seen it in action. But just to explain to the listeners and the viewers, it's essentially a sequence of carefully designed icons or text or combinations of both, isn't it? Just explain how it normally works.
Absolutely. I'll share my screen, but I will just talk you through because audio. I'm going to share my screen and to explain some of this.
Go for it. I think it'd be useful just because a lot of the time it's difficult for brands to get their heads around how this is going to look, particularly luxury brands, because there's that balance. We've had this conversation recently. There's this balance between having something additionally in the user journey that may or may not detract away from the brand value or the perceived brand value. We don't want to, in the luxury space, what we're really careful of doing is we don't want to cheapen things down, do we? We want to make sure that remains. So it'd be useful just to see how that works.
Absolutely. So I'm going to show, it's not an apparel or luxury side, but it's a high value product. Because I think that's the best example of what we're doing. Just checking, can you see my screen?
Yes, it's just coming on now, yeah.
Okay, marvellous. So this is one of our clients, Top Styles PLC. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start off by going into a category page. And you can see we're dropping some messages in here, and not every product will have a message. So we're scrolling down, and then we'll load some more messages in. And that's the starting point, is getting that messages in. And here we're not only talking about how many people have purchased, here we're even recognizing samples. That's a big part of their business. So 77 samples have added since your last visit 3 days ago. So highly personalized.
So it's kind of not saying buy now, because I think sometimes social proof tools that aren't bespoke like Flockr are often, it comes across as buy now, or, the only capability of the system is 600 people from Chester have bought 10 this week, but yours is much more subtle. This is kind of highlighted at the category level, just giving an additional layer of information that people may find useful, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's all about being useful and adding value. So let's go into that product and continue the journey. So when we then land on the PDP, take a second or two to load, it should then. So there it say this is a popular choice, 233 people, and 238 have viewed it since the last since my last visit 3 days ago. And psychologically, what you're doing here is you're validating people's choice. We're all social animals. So imagine you were in the top style store. The likelihood is you would be with somebody, a family member or a friend, and you would ask their opinion. What do you think of this style? Do you think it would suit what we need? What this is doing is a virtual equivalent of that. It's giving you the reassurance that the thing you're looking at, other people have looked at that and made that choice as well. It's an okay choice. We're continuing on this journey. Quite often people will buy a sample or order a sample. So if we drop down into the samples, here we are highlighting which is the most popular sample. So we could add, we can add that into the. I've now added that. I've got a few samples in my basket because I've been playing around, but I'm continuing the messages here. So a bit more, a bit subtler the messages here. But if you go to the baskets, we've got any. Now, when we get to this point, the algorithm is an AI algorithm, and it's selecting the right message for the right place in the journey for that individual. So here it's giving me an urgency. So it's telling me 147 boxes have been sold. So subconsciously, I better get that ordered in case they run out of stock. But continuing on with that, ensuring that we go down into the recommendations of previously seen. You can see that these messages now have an identity. There's a red color. At a glance, you can see what they are. And on a list of products, so here, I'm much more likely to click on something that my eyes are drawn to. My eyes get drawn to this product because it has this standard message. And if we, for instance, integration on the search. So a strong visual identity all across the journey, all the way through, to ensure that's recognized. And then let's go into the checkout. Reinforcing, so there, right, it's a really great message. Don't miss out, 162 boxes sold in the last few days. So that's the kind of experience you're looking to do across your entire journey, being useful. Just to quickly switch on to show you the different types of messaging. Here's a more luxury brand, so Cambridge Satchel. A very similar type of thing. So right there, as I'm scrolling through, which is a long list of satchels, it's highlighting, it's giving me a prompt to say that one of the products here is really popular. 761 people have viewed it. What this is doing is differentiating on a social level which products are popular, not just in purchasing, but views, ads, shares, likes, etc., searches. So it's giving me something else, another dimension of which to differentiate products. So, okay, that one's interesting. We can go into that one. And you can see the execution is very different, the look and feel. The text is unique to every client. This one has animated icons. Look up in a second.
It's amazingly bespoke, isn't it? Is one thing that comes across is that each of the brands that you operate, there is no one solution to fit all, is there?
No, that's key. That it's an enterprise solution, but the budgets from small to very large companies, and we ensure that the implementation is on brand and it adds value, as I've already mentioned, to the journey. It's got a nice look and feel. It feels part of the site. It's not something that's going to pop off or pop over.
Yeah, it feels native. Do you know what's interesting about it? So we talk a lot about storytelling in Revenue Growth Agency, as we mentioned already. Interestingly, what a story does is it takes somebody from one particular part of a journey, strangely enough, to another. It transforms and transports people as they're reading the story or watching the film. They're engaged and they sort of lose themselves, but they're following a very specific path that the writer or creator or director has decided that they want the audience to go down. What's interesting about these social these social nudges or this social proofing tool that you've got is that you essentially are creating a bespoke journey from the minute that somebody lands on the site. You're guiding them by the hand across each stage of the process, assuming that they meet certain criteria, but you're guiding them along the process. And what happens often with our storytelling is that we do everything that lands the person on the right part of the site, but then we lose control a little bit, because it's then up to the website and the brand to then make sure that the imagery is correct, that the end of the story, which essentially is a purchase, is handled correctly. But in most cases, it's not, which is why we work together. So I think that's an interesting thing, that you're actually controlling and building miniature bespoke stories on a sort of second by second basis, aren't you, really?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, what we're doing is helping to convert that percentage of people that need the nudge, on the fence, unsure about making that purchase. The people who are just browsing, who are not going to buy, who have no need or want to buy, you're not going to convert them. So the ones that are definitely going to buy, because they're going to buy anyway, that middle part, typically we see that between 5 and 15% range of your visitors. They just need that nudge. They need something to say, that product you're looking at is popular, or it's okay for you. It's okay to add it to the basket. Go ahead and do that. And it sounds a bit nefarious, but as you see, we're doing it in a very unintrusive way to psychologically help them along that path. And like you say, tell them the story that the product they're looking at, they're searching for, is okay, it's the right one. And then once they get into the basket and into checkout, and we're actually a bit of a sneak preview. We're doing some work around payment methods and looking at, because we all know that checkout drop-off, it's all about people into checkout, but checkout drop-off is one of the hardest things to solve. So we're looking at adding social proof deep into the checkout process to try and get people around which is the right payment method or delivery options or different things for to improve that as well. So a very deep integration all through the customer journey to tell that story.
And you know what else is interesting, just going through that very quick whiz through, and it's something that I've noticed before, is that because it's all bespoke, of course, further up the journey you are in the website. So let's say you arrive at a category page. So that tops tiles example was a category page where you see, all of the tiles for a bathroom or whatever the case may be. And it's the tone and the type of message is much more of an awareness piece. So it's much more kind of like upper funnel, isn't it? It's kind of saying you're not alone. Other people in your story, in your journey on this website have seen this and like it. And the messaging that we saw then, and it's the same for the Cambridge Satchel example, is very soft and non-intrusive. And then as you start to get down the journey a little bit, the messaging it doesn't have to, but it can start to step up a little bit and remind people more what they're here to do. It might mention price, it might mention an offer or something else. And then as it gets to the basket stage, it's much more of I wouldn't say aggressive, but it's much more of a nudge, isn't it? It's a firmer nudge. So it's interesting that there's that sort of funnel approach to this story as well, isn't it?
That's right. First thing to say is that each client can customize the text and the imagery and everything else that goes with that, so they can have a unique tone of voice and style individual to their brand. But each placement through the funnel for each different type of message can be customized as well. So at the top of the funnel, you might want messaging to be, like you say, it's more about inspiring and validating. Bottom of the funnel, you might want to change the tone slightly and be more about urgency or recency. But also, we do things like size-based messaging. There's only one in stock left in your size type of messaging, which converts extremely well. The final part to add on that is it is AI underneath it. We all have to say it's AI because it's the buzzword now, but it truly is. I've worked and built AI models for 20 years. So whilst you're prompting the engine, giving it the right text, tone of voice, etc., you can hand the keys to it. It will learn what the best message, best placement for that individual at that point in time You don't have. It's not a lot of hard work to set up. Tell us what the tone of voice is. You can set the measures up. You can tweak them as much as you want and test them, and then the engine will take care of the rest.
Super interesting. Yeah, I think we've got to mention AI these days, haven't we? Because otherwise we're behind the times out. If you don't mention AI, even though it's something that's been around for so long, it seems to be the last 18 months. If you mention AI, all of a sudden you're cutting edge in marketing.
Absolutely. I think this next 3 years are going to be a real. I think we're on. I'm sure people will know about the hype curve, how the curve goes up and then drops. I think we're right at that peak of the curve. I think we're going to see some interesting things. Then it's going to drop, and then I think about 3 years out to the real value of AI.
Yeah, I think it'd be useful for the listeners and the viewers to because of course if they want to use your product to support the conversion rate improvements, it needs to be installed in brackets. Do you want to just talk us through about the installation process? And you mentioned at the start the whole privacy issue is a big thing at the minute, and in January this year, Chrome's starting to remove the use of third-party cookies, and so we as brands, we're aware, acutely aware that we're losing the visibility of our audience a little bit, and sometimes we fear that some of the tools that we're using are becoming less and less impactful. Do you want to talk about how Flockr's installed and whether and touch on the privacy issues and how you get around that?
Sure. So installation is very simple. It's just a tag. You put a tag on the page through. I can be done through Google Tag Manager or Shopify or Magento. We're completely platform agnostic. We don't require any back-end integration. You just drop the tag on the page. The tag sits there, runs asynchronously after the page is loaded, so it doesn't affect your page speed in any way. Then it collects the browsing data, it's all anonymous, and it uses first-party cookies. We don't use any third-party cookies. It's all done first-party. And the only thing we track is the visitor, what sessions they have and what actions they do. We don't collect any personal information or any geographical information or fingerprinting or anything like that. Privacy is really, really important. In fact, it's part of user terms that you won't send us and we won't collect any identifiable information. In terms of installation, as I mentioned, put the tag on your page. We then do a custom design, which is a document, an old-fashioned Word document. Has all of the details. A version control document that lays out the placements, the text, the design, the font, the colors, everything else. We all do that. We set that up in the system, and you can preview that live on your site by using a special URL that activates the messages. We do all the full QA and device testing. The customer may wish to do some of that themselves. If they have a UAT environment, they can do it in that. And then we would then go into a period of A/B testing, which I guess we're going to talk about next. But it's really a 5-minute job to install the tag, 2, 3, 4 days for us to implement the design and get that okayed, but very easy, low friction for the customer.
So the A/B test I do want to touch on. We've got about 7 minutes left, and the end of these sessions we normally try and do sort of our top tips. But what I'm keen to do is to just expand on that A/B test and how you start working, because there's normally a process. So a client gets in touch, and we'll put your details in the link in the bottom of the description of this webinar. But what's the process, and how do you onboard a client? And then just touch on the A/B tests.
Okay. So as mentioned, put a tag on a page. We do a design for you. You don't have to come up with a design. We'll recommend what it looks like and then make any tweaks, or if you want to design the measures, you can. We'll then go into at least a 30-day trial period. It's free of charge. There's no obligations, no contract to sign. We'll run that for 30 days, and we'll A/B test, typically a 50-50 split of traffic, 50% with the website as is, with no messaging, 50% with the Flockr messages added. And we'll measure the key, the KPIs, conversion uplift, the add to basket rate, the average order value, the revenue, the view products, number of items viewed, all the standard e-commerce metrics. All those are measured in Google Analytics, so you can validate it. You can compare or use audiences to do it, so you can compare the audiences. But we actually collect we grab the data from Google Analytics and display it in the Flockr portal, which is we have a whole reporting suite of analytics around what messages have been displayed and therefore what performance all of those give. So independently verified in Google Analytics that what the revenue uplift is and the conversion uplift. So it's a solid business case that says, by running this tool, we've produced you a 12% increase in revenue, free to try, and then you can make a decision whether you want to continue or not.
Wow, brilliant. So I guess that's your top tip, really, isn't it? Is run the test. It's essentially no risk, isn't it, really? You know, it's run A/B test, winner takes all. If the existing version wins, then great. You've not lost anything, but maybe a bit of time, maybe. But yeah, okay. So my top tip, I think, is an interesting one, and it's one that's very simple, very easy to do, and it follows the A/B testing platform or system that you're messaging, is testing e-com landing pages. So a lot of the time, brands tend to focus on the overall site conversion and try and use tools to assist them with that, one of which is yours, and it's very successful at doing that. But I think sometimes getting a bit more granular and looking at which category you are dropping products into, which URLs are being fed traffic into your website as a landing page, and looking at what the conversion on those pages are, looking at category pages and looking at product pages particularly, and starting almost from the bottom up rather than the top down. I've seen some really good improvements based on that as a strategy rather than site-wide. There's plenty more, but of course we're running out of time a little bit. Do you want to just tell the listeners and the viewers about how they can get in touch with you and what's the best for that?
Sure. So you can email me, which is gareth@flockr.co. That's FLOCKR.co. Not to be confused with Flickr. If you search for Flockr, Google will say, "Do you mean Flickr?" It tells me that every day, and I say, "No, I really don't mean Flickr. I mean Flockr." So it's FLOCKR.co, Flockr.co. Have a look on the website, or drop me an email, or go via Andy. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, so please do connect with me or drop me a message. We'll have a chat.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. We've got about 2 minutes left. Thank you very much for joining us, Gareth. I know you're super busy. You're right on. You've pulled over to have this session with us. I know you're on the way to an important meeting, so I really appreciate your time in joining us today. And as the viewers and listeners know, we do these sessions every 4 weeks. Hopefully next time Danielle will be joining us in the hosting chair, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.